How are you, Chuck?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing really good. Hey, tell Behan nice play call on that last play last night.
What was that call, Charles?
That's called strictly luck. But it was a heck of a game. It was a heck of a game.
Yeah, and I wonder about that. Do you practice that? He's your best player, but how do you practice something like that, or do you?
Well, I thought that Duke really ran an awful last play, number one, because, they couldn't get the last shot. So when you can't get the last shot, you just get a good shot. And for some reason, they end up waiting, and then they took a bad shot.
Mm-hmm.
And then Syracuse just got lucky because because clearly he didn't call glass. But I was disappointed in Duke, because, it was about 39 seconds when they got the ball. And instead of just running a play, getting a good shot, they milked the clock for some unknown reason. And then Syracuse just hit a lucky shot.
I never understood that if I have a good shot, but, my coach is saying, let's drain the clock as much as we can. I'd rather have the right shot at the right time as opposed to trying to force something as the shot clock starts to expire. Why is that?
I 100% agree with you, because if you, I'm sitting here and I was sitting there watching, and I'm like, well, you can't get the last shot.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was a bad possession by Duke. And then, hey, give Syracuse credit to hit. The kid hit a lucky shot. It was a good basketball game.
I don't know if you saw this last night. There was a moment a couple of nights ago with John Calipari where he's doing a halftime interview on the mothership, and then the Missouri fans start chanting, "You suck." And then he said, all right, I'm going to stop and go to the locker room. Rick Pitino last night at North Carolina, somebody said something, and then he was ready to go back. He was going into the stands after this heckler. Like, I understand, Calipari just saying, I'm not going to listen to this. But Pitino was going into the stands after this guy. Like, what would be over the top where you would see? Now, I know you had your moments, but a coach going into the stands here, Charles.
Well, I've always believed that every coach and every player should be able to bring one fan out of the stands, meet him at half court, and say what you said to me to my face. And if he says what he said, you should get to beat the hell out of him. I've been saying that for 25 years, Dan. Every NBA player, every coach, college or pros, some of these fans have been way out of line for years. And y'all give them a ticket, and they think they can say anything. They wouldn't say that stuff to your face, man to man. They only do it when they're protected by the crowd and television cameras and things like that. But like I say, I believe for years, every fan, every NBA player, every coach should be able to bring a fan down the half court and say exactly what you said to me, and then you can't even get arrested. It should be like gladiator type stuff. And you just beat the hell out of them right there on the spot, and I guarantee you they would not do it again.
Yeah, I know the fans are going to say stuff, and sometimes they're funny, but when they go overboard, usually, you'll hear something racially charged. And then if I'm African American, I can't let that just slide. The other stuff, if somebody says you suck or you're fat or okay, but if somebody says something like that, then I'm going into the crowd and I'm beating you with my shoe.
Well, unfortunately, I've been arrested a few times for hitting fans, and every time I did it, they deserved it. I never felt bad about it. They actually deserved it. They know they were wrong. Like I say, man, some of these fans been out of hand for many years.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of jealousy because guys make so much money. Clearly, when you're black, they have said some things or made some sounds that were inappropriate, and you should have the right to beat them down. You're always going to get in trouble, but you know what? Every time I did and got in trouble, I slept good that next night.
I always felt bad for Patrick Ewing with what he went through starting in high school and then at Georgetown. And, when you're around Patrick, I mean, he can't be a nicer guy, but just the racial stuff, and they were throwing bananas on the basketball floor. I mean, I mean, that's remarkable that, he put up with that or had to put up with that.
Well, I'll tell you two things about Patrick Ewing. He may be I've been in the NBA for 30 years. He might be the nicest guy I've ever, a superstar, obviously, the nicest guy I've ever been around. But also I think it's a travesty he hasn't gotten a head coaching job.
Yeah.
He's one of the few guys. He's one of the few great players in NBA history who actually went the assistant coach route, however you want to pronounce it, and has paid his dues. But I think he's one of the nicest people I've ever met. And like I say, it's a travesty that he's never gotten a head coaching job. I mean, some of these other bums they've hired and fired, this guy can't even get a look. And I just think that's a travesty.
He's Charles Barkley, NBA on TNT. I agree with you. We've had Patrick on quite a few times, and hoping that he would get, that final interview to become a head coach. Magic Johnson is going to mean what to the Lakers front office?
Well, he's going to work his behind off. He's going to try to do a good job. It's tough right now because nobody has any patience. We're drafting these 18-year-old kids, 19-year-old kids, and you're not going to know anything about them for 3 or 4 years. So that's the biggest obstacle. I mean, you look at the Lakers now. You got D'Angelo Russell, you got Randall, and you got Brandon Ingram. And you think they might be good players, but you're not going to know for another couple of years. I think Magic is always going to be successful because he's a hard-working guy. But, man, it's tough, because all these guys in the NBA want to play together now.
Yeah.
So you don't you have to, same thing with, Paul George. He's a hell of a player. Now he wants to move on. So it's killing the NBA, and to be honest with you, because we don't have that many good teams.
Would you have hired
Kevin Garnett? Go ahead.
Would you have hired Magic?
He can do just. Wait, why not?
No, I'm just curious. If
No. It makes me laugh when I've heard some of this stuff going around. Wait, who you think got a better chance of being successful, Magic Johnson or Jim Buss? I mean, it's funny how it's such a double standard. They hire some of these other people who got no clue about sports. Give Magic a chance. If I had on an NBA team and somebody says, "Hey, would you hire Jim Buss or Magic Johnson?" I'm like, I'm gonna hire Magic Johnson.
Okay, let me put it to you this way: you own a team and you can hire Michael, Larry, or Magic in your front office, but only one.
Wow, that's a great question. Wow. That is a great question, Dan. I don't normally get stumped that often. Well, Michael has been better. He's done a much better job lately. He was obviously struggling in the beginning. Larry's done a very good job in Indiana. He's done a very good job. And Magic hasn't had his chance yet. So I really can't. That's a really tough question. My affinity for Michael, I would love to see him be really, really successful. But Bird has done a fantastic job in Indiana. They've been competitive for the last 10 years or more. But also, Magic hasn't had his chance. But I would, like I say, that's a great question, Dan.
I don't think there's a wrong answer. Feels like Bird might have been, Bird's been more successcul from being a coach and also being a GM. Michael's been so Bird's probably the right answer because of what roles he's been in.
Yes, I would agree with that. The Magic hasn't had his chance, and Michael has struggled at times. Obviously, he's struggled at times, but Bird has the best track record.
Who should be traded today?
Well, Jimmy Butler should be traded. If Paul George is going to leave Indiana next year, he should be traded because you can't have a Kevin Durant situation.
Mm-hmm.
You can't let him just walk next year and get nothing for him. If I'm the Celtics, I make a deal. You have to say to yourself, if we make a deal, we can beat Boston. If I don't make a deal, I'm just going to have another 18-year-old kid on my team coming in next year, and he's not good. Because, Dan, tell me who's the rookie of the year this year?
Do we have one?
We don't have one.
Yeah.
point. See, this is one of the reasons I hate drafting these young high school kids. The two kids who have played well are Murray from Denver, who's played well. And also you got Brogdon from Milwaukee. The rest of these guys who are drafting, man, they're making zero difference in the NBA. Zero difference. And see, what bothers me about that, Dan, it undermines the integrity of the draft. The draft is designed for bad teams to get help. That's what I hate about this whole thing the most. If I'm a fan, and I'm a fan, team sucks. In the old days, you say, man, I'm getting a Patrick Ewing, I'm getting a Michael Jordan, I'm getting a Magic Johnson. You know, I'm getting at least a Karl Malone or a John Stockton. Now I'm getting a player who's probably he ain't going to help me for 3 or 4 years. That's not fair to the fans. That bothers me. So if I'm the Celtics and I got a chance to get Jimmy Butler or Paul George, I'm saying, yeah, I'm going to get a lottery pick, but he's not going to be as good as Jimmy Butler or Paul George. And next year, I'm not going to be that much better next year. So if I'm the Celtics and I'm close to got a chance of beating the Cavaliers, I pull the trigger on a big deal.
Yeah, that's why if I had a chance for Boogie Cousins and I'm the Lakers, I would have brought him in because I got one of the two best big men in the game, and you got guys who are young and developing, but I got somebody who I can at least build around. But, you know,
Well, what makes you think you can build around Boogie Cousins?
At least I got one of the two best centers in the game, so I can start there of somebody who at least has talent. And if I surround him with, you know, good people in the front office that he'll respect and listen to, then I got a chance there.
Wait, so it's always somebody else's fault, right?
No, it's his fault too. Absolutely. I start there with him, but it's just like when Rodman came in to the Bulls, you know, he respected Phil and Michael, and he fell in line there. I think that there are instances where, you know, I think Boogie Cousins has got a whole lot of talent. And if you're the Lakers, you're not going anywhere.
First of all, Boogie Cousins got a tremendous amount of talent.
Yes.
I think he's one of the most talented big men I've ever seen. But let me tell you something, Dan, if your team never wins, you have to take some responsibility. You can't pass the buck to Sacramento Kings. You say, well, it was Sacramento. If you never make the playoffs.
Yeah, but that roster was terrible, Charles, that they've had 6 or 7 coaches. The front office is a mess.
And you don't think he had nothing to do with that?
They didn't hire a coach who he...
No. Let me ask you, the reason they kept firing coaches because he kept getting them fired. But secondly, let me ask you a question. Everybody talk about all the bad players on their team. Do you think if he was a better leader, those guys would have been better?
You don't want Boogie Cousins on your team?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. But my question is, Dan, everybody always want to blame Sacramento and say he has nothing to play with. Do you think if he was a better leader and he treated the other teammates better, you don't think some of those young guys on that team would have at least developed in the last 6 or 7 years?
Well,
all those guys, they were all lottery picks. They can't all be bad. Do you think he made it such a toxic environment that those young guys couldn't grow up and mature?
Well, you know what? We're going to find out now that he's out of town, that these guys are going to, let's see if they develop.
Well, they won't be the same because he's a hell of a player. But I'm saying we're going to see what the truth is with him, with Anthony Davis now. That's the big question. I've never said those guys in Sacramento were great players. But if he had been a better leader and a better teammate, they would have been better. But let me tell you something. Now he gets a chance. He's playing with Anthony Davis and Drew Holiday and some other players down there. Now we're going to get to see who fault it was for real now. Now it gets real.
I can't wait till the first round of the playoffs when New Orleans knocks off Golden State 8-1, Charles.
I tell you what, Dan, I'll take you to the biggest steakhouse in any city you want to. Let's bet a steak dinner on that. And you can bring the Danettes with you too. I can afford dinner for them too.
I would think I get a little more than a damn steak if I predict the Pelicans beat Golden State, Chuck. I think I get this. How about I get a steak dinner and I get a car?
Are you kidding me?
Wait, I'm calling the greatest upset of all time here.
Damn, you in my family and you want free stuff just like the rest of them do?
How about just like a hybrid or something? Like not an expensive car, but just a car, a two-seater or something like that. It'd be nice.
I tell you what I'll do.
Okay.
I'll get you a Kia. I like Kias.
All right. Fair enough. So I'll buy you a steak dinner, and you'll buy me a steak dinner with the Danettes and a Kia. So it's going to be the same price. Your dinner is going to be the same price as my steak dinner and the Kia as far as cost.
Okay, my brother. I look forward to it.
Thank you, Charles. Good to talk to you again.
All right, thanks for having me on.
All right, buddy.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.